every single growth area that you have has a yeah, but. And the fact that you're surrounded by a group of people that are there to coach you, to train you, to support you. I mean, so I think embracing a culture of yeah, but is what everybody needs to do in order to become the best version of themselves on and off. So yes, I have yeah buts.
Welcome to the Yeah But podcast. I'm Marc Wolfe, executive coach and author of the best-selling book, Yeah But. If you've ever said yeah but when facing a challenge, this show is for you. Join me and inspiring guests from Super Bowl champs to Navy SEALs and human rights leaders as we share real stories of overcoming excuses and getting unstuck. Let's cut through the noise and lead better together. I'm here with our guest, Ben Utecht. Ben, tell us a few things about yourself. Tell us 2 things about you personally, 2 things professionally, and why it matters to our audience.
Oh man. Well, first of all, Mark, thank you so much for having me. It's been awesome to get to know you and love your platform. I think the yeah, but concept is so important for every person to experience, right? Because we all have them. We all have them and they affect our lives greatly. So thank you for having me. So 2 things personal. Number 1, I am husband and a father, and it's the joy of my life. And the good Lord, in all of his wisdom, thought it was necessary that I have 4 daughters. My wife calls our house the Estrogen Ocean. I'm just this boy, buoy that's trying to keep his head above water. So that and also a PK, man. I'm a son of a pastor's kid. My dad was a Methodist minister for 50 years, and I tell you that because it's the foundation of my joy in communication. It's where I found my passion to speak. You know, I was raised by a man who every week created and delivered a message to positively transform people. And I knew that I was called to do the same thing. And I get to do it now corporately through the power of chosen culture and how do you build winning culture in companies. But what a blessing to kind of see that gift in practice by your father and then take that on yourself. From a business perspective, number 1, had a wonderful career in professional football, played 4 years with the Colts, won a Super Bowl in 2006, and then went on to have a very successful business career as a national speaker on organizational culture, and then becoming a chief culture officer in a wonderful company here in Minnesota. So it's been a fun ride.
I think the reason this matters so much is that you've accomplished a lot of things through a lot of adversity. And even though you've accomplished, being on a Super Bowl winning team and surviving being a girl dad, which are accomplishments in themselves, it's just, you still have yeah buts, which people that look up to people and say, well, you've done all this. How can you have yeah buts? Is that true? Really? You have yeah buts?
Oh man, so many yeah buts. And I'll tell you, listen, and I don't know if you've ever had anybody say it this way to you, but the yeah, but culture is something that is very prevalent in team sports because team sports provides you with so many life lessons around collaboration, being on a team, right? Being surrounded by 53 of the greatest athletes on the planet. You learn very quickly what are your strengths and what are your growth areas. And every single growth area that you have has a yeah. And the fact that you're surrounded by a group of people that are there to coach you, to train you, to support you. I mean, so I think embracing a culture of yeah, but is what everybody needs to do in order to become the best version of themselves on and off. So yes, I have yeah buts. And I'm okay with having
Well, it's interesting because in a competitive landscape, you would think that most people, because they're athletes, are like, I'm just an overcomer. I'm going to be able to get through it. I'm going to be able to do, but we're still human, that we still have things that we're still like, well, yeah, but even in sports, right? I mean, and you say
oh yeah.
Give me an example, like the first example that comes to your mind that you saw when you were first in the NFL and you heard it, yeah, but, and it surprised you that people were like that.
I think it would come down, my first reaction to that would be kind of the performance metrics that it takes in order to be, at the top level in sports, right? And so you're going to get a lot of yeah buts, or here's it. So when you walked into the Indianapolis Colts locker room on the big white wall, it said in blue letters, "No excuses, no explanation. The only way to win is through execution." And so, you know, I think that there's kind of the yeah, but can come in a form of an excuse or an explanation, right? Well, yeah, but this player, you know, runs this 40 speed, or this player bench presses this weight. And so you use those yeah buts as an excuse or an explanation for why you weren't able to do your job, right?
Yeah.
And that doesn't cut it. Like they don't deal with those types of yeah buts, right? And so I would say that was probably the thing that, especially my first year, when you go from Division I football to professional football, and you realize, okay, now I'm playing against the top 1% of all Division I players. So the power, the speed, the strength, the on the field intellect, everything is just times 100, right? And so it's easy for those yeah buts to kind of slip in to make you feel better about actually not performing at the level that you need to. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah. No, this is great. It's great to hear the honesty, because you've got people from a lot of different cultures and a lot of different teams and a lot of different upbringings that football brings together in a way where there's a lot of baggage people carry just to get to where they are. Not that that's exclusive to NFL, but because it's so visible, everybody gets to see what's going on. And then behind the scenes, you're in the locker room and you're getting to hear people's backstories and other things that you probably didn't even know until you were there, right?
Yeah. Oh, 100%. And that's why, and honestly, my whole passion for organizational culture was planted in my heart by Tony Dungy, who was the first to win a Super Bowl built on servant leadership, right? The belief was, if you build better men, you get better football. And and so you have a guy like Tony Dungy, who's a Hall of Fame coach, who knows how to, I call it bold grace. They know how to behave in a manner that reflects kindness and clemency, and yet at the same time demand excellence. And you've got a guy like Tony who's able to, and you're right. Like there's a percentage of players in the NFL, for example, that come out of very difficult life situations, that many of whom, they don't have fathers. And you have a guy like Tony Dungy who's able to come in and say, yeah, but you're surrounded by people that love you.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, but every single coach in the organization views you as one of their own children, one of their own, right? You have value, significance, and purpose, right? And we're going to help you fill that gap, because if we can help you grow as a man, we believe that it's going to transfer over onto the field, right? So,
Mm-hmm.
the spectrum of yeah, but can really lean into the transformational.
I wasn't going to go here. I wasn't going to go here, but now we're here. It's like, you know, Tony literally played a role that, I mean, it's God ordained. I mean, he transformed people into men that they just wanted to play football. And part of your story is that. And when I first heard it, I was still floored. I mean, every time I hear it, I'm still like, wow, what a providential story that came to be. But you're just one of the many stories, because he's obedient and he listens. So let's start there. I wanted to ask you about your buts, but I mean, I'm so compelled, Ben. I'm like, I want to start here. So tell me about this backstory about how you were selected to do something, even though you're injured and everything else that went up.
Oh, thanks for starting there, because I think it sets the tone. And it really was the heartbeat of my new book, The Champions Creed, which Tony Dungy writes the preface on this. So he tells the story through his perspective, which is so cool. But, I was one of the top tight ends in the country. My senior year, projected to be a first-round draft pick. And towards the end of our season, we played our biggest rival, the Wisconsin Badgers, ran a pass route. As I turned to look for the ball, I heard and felt popping all across my lower abdomen. My legs stopped working, and I crumbled to the turf. But I caught the ball, Mark. That's all that matters, right? I caught the ball. So I still made the, but I got carted off the field, and that was the end of my season. I got red flagged by all of the NFL physicians as too much of a health risk to draft. And so I went from being a potential first rounder, Mackey Award winner, which was the nation's top tight end award, to not getting drafted at all. Driving up to my agent's office, holding back tears, Minnesota rainy day, put all my eggs in the football basket. 2 months before that moment, I had a chance to speak at a huge alumni event at the University of Minnesota. And I was the opening speaker for Tony Dungy, who is also a Gopher alumni. So I get up in front of 700 alumni and I say, hey, coach, if you really care about this university, if you really care about being a Gopher, you're going to draft me in the upcoming draft. And everybody loved it. And he was gracious enough to respond. He came to the mic and said, Ben, we know how talented you are. We'd love to have you. We drafted a tight end in the first round last year. And so we're not going to be looking for tight ends. And then he stepped away from the podium. And this goes back to what you said about listening. He was listening to he's a man of faith. So I like to believe that he was kind of being downloaded some wisdom, but he stepped back, put his hand on his chin for a few seconds, came back to the podium and said, Ben, I'm going to make a promise to you in front of all of these people. For some reason, you slip through the cracks. For some reason, you don't get drafted. I promise I'll be the first person to call. And it went in one ear and out the other. I still had a lot of interest. I hadn't yet gone to the draft, so I didn't know that I was going to be red flagged and for my injury. So fast forward 2 months, I get out of the car with my dad after not being drafted. I go sit at the table in my agent's office. There's a phone in the middle of the table. The only option I have is as a free agent, all the leftovers, right? The guys who come in and give veterans a break and rarely make a team. And 5 seconds after the free agent market opens, the phone rings and I pick it up and who do you think it was?
It's Tony Dungy.
Tony Dungy, man. The first person to call. And it wasn't just Tony Dungy. It was also Bill Polk, the Hall of Fame general manager, calling a free agent and saying, look, we didn't think this was going to happen. We know how talented you are when you're healthy. Our physicians believe they know what your injury is. We want you to be a Colt. We're going to send you to the top surgeon in the country. And all we want is for you to get better. So just rest the entire first year and we'll pay you as though you're a playing rookie. And here's a signing bonus just to let you know that we care. Yeah, but I haven't done anything for you. Yeah, but how do you know I'm going to be successful? And their yeah, but was, yeah, but how do you know that you won't become a starting tight end? Yeah, but how do you know that you won't help lead us to a world championship? And so that experience was just unbelievable. It's my miracle story in the NFL. And the result was really amazing. I was a starting tight end on a Super Bowl championship team and really set the tone and gave me a chance to show the world what I was capable of. But it only came because of one man practicing a chosen belief system around assuming and believing the best in his players.
That is an amazing story. I mean, you don't know how many lives you touch just because of living through that, man. That's amazing. This leads me to just the follow-up, which is humility in athletes is usually something they lead with. Usually, a lot of people want to be the best version of themselves, be seen as bulletproof, be seen as the top of their game, can't show vulnerabilities. And what you did was so countercultural and so different. How did you because some of your backstory was you were a little bit more of the arrogant type in the past when you were.
Yeah.
How did that transformation happen where you was the humility and to keep staying humble?
Well, okay. Wow. And we could have a whole podcast on this when it comes to culture, but humility is built on a belief and it's built on a choice of practicing that belief. So, I have dealt with pride and arrogance, cockiness, however you want to describe it, because so many times in my life, things have gone the way that I've wanted them to. And I've allowed that to inflate my ego, right? At the same time, growing up in a faith family and talking a lot about power of selflessness, the power of faith and humility, the foundation in my humanity and who I am as a man was always telling me about how valuable and important selflessness is towards building trust and creating teams and great relationships. Honestly, Mark, it was more about, okay, I know that one of my growth areas is pride. And I know that the answer and the solution to that is practicing a spirit of humility. Listen, when you get to the NFL, Mark, you are confronted right away with an internal question. Are you okay being around people that are better?
Yeah.
And it doesn't mean that you ever stop working towards being the best. but it means that you are around some of the most elite talent in the world, and you are going to be faced with a confrontation. That there are people that can do things that you cannot. In the first team meeting I was ever in was, my job here is to win, but it's also to build a family. And the acronym for family in football is forget about me, I love you.
Yeah.
I mean, he's saying that to like 53 of the most powerful egotistical masculine people on the planet.
Right.
I mean, we're talking 5, 6 Hall of Famers on this team. And that's his entrance into what makes football, so valuable. So yes, I think that humility is incredibly important, but it is something you have to understand deeply. You have to choose to believe in it deeply, and you have to practice it deeply for it to have the value that it's capable.
As you're saying this, it's in being a pastor's kid, going through the injury you've been through. You can know this fundamentally in your head, but acting it out and actually acting on that is the most difficult part that I've ever seen with leaders, right? They know that they're supposed to act a certain way, that they have to be. But Dungy did it in a way where he's like, I really don't care what you think. This is who I am. So you can either like me or not. This is who I am, right? Like, I don't know him like you do, but you're like, to say something like that and actually live it out and not just say for optics. Wow. That's different.
Is the purpose of your life only to improve yourself, or is the purpose of your life to improve the lives of others?
Ouch. Right.
And honestly, it's always, there's a balance. It's like a hybrid. I mean, because the argument is, well, in order to improve other people, I have to do well. I have to love myself too. And I have to do well by myself. The more I love myself and the more I try to improve myself, the more I can love others and improve others. Right. But still to have those types of questions and to consider those types of philosophies in the NFL was a huge surprise. Right. But so good and such a huge impact on my life.
Hey there, it's time for a quick break. While we're diving into how to live, learn, and lead better, I wanted to let you in on something I'm really excited about. If you've ever found yourself stuck in the yeah, but cycle, those moments where excuses get in your way of your potential, my new book, Yeah, But, Cut Through the Noise to Live, Learn, and Lead Better is for you. The book is packed with practical strategies, real stories, and actionable advice to help you stop making excuses and start making progress. Whether you're a leader, a learner, or just someone looking to cut through the noise, Yeah, But has something for you. And here's the best part. For a limited time, you can grab a chapter for free. Just head over to my website at www.marcawolfe.com/book to get started. Readers have already said that the perspective and stories guided them to get unstuck and move forward. All right, let's get back to the show and dive into more ways to break through those yeah, but moments. Even when you're in the NFL, you have a short lifespan of doing this. So there's more life after the NFL than there ever is in the NFL. And we all know that. But what I'm hearing and what I'm seeing is that your life after, and because of his teaching and because of the man he is, and because of what you're doing with this, he actually is spreading this in a way where you can affect tens of thousands or other people because of what you lived through.
100%. Yeah. And when I look at the last 13 to 15 years of my life, I can't believe it's been that long since I retired, but I often see it in parallel with what an NFL season was like. I mean, 16 regular season games. It's hard to explain to people how brutal that is on the human body. Like you get to week 8 and 9, and I'm not kidding. There is a week where you wake up and it's almost physically impossible to get out of bed. Like there is you hit a wall. Every season there's a wall, and you hit that wall, and it's like your body is saying, I can't do this anymore. Right. And you have to roll out of bed, and you've got to get the blood flowing, and you've got to get the mindset right. Right. And then you break through that wall. And then all of a sudden it's like your body comes back to life. And yet every single week you enter into a battle, a physical battle, an emotional battle, a relational battle. And I can't help but just see the parallels that are connected between that and life. I mean, the last 13 years has had incredible peaks, right? Where you hit the summit and it's like, awesome. Like I found it, I reached my potential. And then all of a sudden the market changes, or all of a sudden you lose some of your best team members in the organization, or, I mean, and then all of a sudden, boom, you hit the valley and it's hard to get out of bed. And some days you wake up and you don't know what your purpose is and your value and significance. But where's the mean in that? Where's the North Star? Where's the consistency? And that's that foundation of belief that is going to always balance the peaks, and it's always going to balance the valleys. And that is what I learned from Tony Dungy. Quiet strength. He was always just here the whole way. So when we were high, he could pull us in. When we were low, he could bring us up. And so it's like our lives are like an NFL football season. And how do we continue to practice the fundamentals and techniques that are the foundation of success? And how do we stay consistent through the storm and consistent through the sun, right? And that's all of that was found in a football locker room. I mean, it's like, what?
You're living this out in a way where your authenticity and how you interact and what you really care about makes you more trustworthy and makes you more of a platform for people to listen to, calm, and no matter what the storm is. And you're getting to do it reach different people and a different audience with your book. And being a girl dad, I mean, there's a whole thing about being a girl dad alone. I mean,
my role as a husband and a father, in part, is to meet them where they are, to understand their needs, and to do whatever I can to support them, protect them, provide for them. It's so important for me to listen very carefully to what they're telling me they need, or how they're telling me they need to be supported, or even at times challenging me, right? That's one of the things I've always said to my girls is, I'm okay with you challenging me so that I can become a better dad. If you don't like the way that I said something, or if the word choice that I used was hurtful, or I want you to feel comfortable in confronting me on that. And they have done it. And then in that moment, I have to choose my belief in the power of humility. This has happened before, like, Dad, like what you said and how you said it really hurt. Okay. And so in that moment, I had a choice to make. And so I chose to physically lower myself. I'm 6'7", 260 pounds. I'm not a small man. And so I chose to get on my knees. I'm below my daughter, my daughter's line, and take her hand and apologize. And again, I'm not perfect. I'll probably make this mistake again, but I hear you. And I know that this is something that I have to improve. Right?
Love that. And it's so much support when you hear that, the dads that get that. So Ben, part of that, my wife had to teach me a lot of this about being a man. She's like, you're head of the household. That's biblical. And I was, oh, okay. And she's like, and there's responsibilities that you don't want to take, but you're going to, because that's the way it is as a man. And what I'm hearing from you is like, you'll even take advice from your kids, which most people would say, what would a 16-year-old know? People tell you what they really want. And when they do and you ignore it because you're too arrogant or they can't know, what you're really telling them is they're not important. And what you do for your daughters is not just listen. You physically get down and show them. You're showing them what a man is going to be and setting the standard for the men they're going to date in the future.
Yes.
By your actions, not just by your words.
Yes.
It makes you a better husband because, I mean, if you could do this with your daughters, your wife, obviously you're going to be able to listen to your wife better. I try to teach people too, because I teach on leadership from a different perspective, not through sports and through the experience you had with Dungy. And I teach it from coming from not having and having the ability to try to interact with people to the point where you can build relationships, because I didn't come from wealth, right? So I had to work my way up from poverty to be able to do this. And part of this is when you can do this with your family, you can also do it with your employees in different ways. It's comfortable, doesn't cross any lines, but when people come into your office and tell you something, or when you see something, you see body language, your job is to just be like, hey, I noticed this. Can you tell me more about what you're feeling, right? Or what's going on? Or what conversation did you just have that I see that this reaction? And just that, even if they don't tell you, they are like, wow, somebody noticed and it's my boss and he cared enough. What they do with that is up to them. You saying these stories, I hope people hear this and realize maybe there's things I can learn from my kids and my wife and my employees.
What you're able to practice at home is able to transfer over to business. When you take time to communicate in a way that provides significance and value to your team members at work, when someone comes in and is willing to have the vulnerability to say, hey, you know how you handled this meeting or the tone that you had, it's just, here's how it made me feel. And if in that moment you're willing to, not through your pride, but through your humility, say, okay, I didn't intend for that. However, you experienced it that way. I apologize. Like that's not the kind of leader that I want to be. What are some of the ways that I can be better? Do you know what happens in that moment? Like you instantly build trust and credibility with that person. And then if they give you some examples and you actually apply and practice some of those examples, now they're going, holy cow, like this person not only respects me, but they actually care about what I have to say. So then what happens the next time where you have to, as the leader, hold them accountable for work? They are willing, they're more willing to accept, to accept the challenge and to do what it takes to do it because you have treated them in a similar fashion. It's not easy.
No.
By any means. And you're not going to be perfect at it. You will fail. But if you're willing to try, and if you're willing to apply, even on small, ripple levels, you will create, growth in areas that you otherwise wouldn't have been able to do.
It's like a masterclass. I mean, Ben, the things we're talking about, seriously, 8.2 billion people in the world, this has all been solved.
Your greatest asset in your company actually creates the profit is people understanding that every person that comes into your company has perfect purpose, significance, and value. They bring their own intrinsic belief system. And how do you create a culture that develops them towards the beliefs and values that the company espouses to represent their culture, right? But if you don't put any time into that, then you're literally just driving a culture of transaction.
People are going to leave. They're just going to be pissed off. They're not going to have it. You treat employees horribly. And I'm interested when people say we treat the customer as the best. And I was like, no, you treat your employees the best, and then they will treat the customer the best. Yeah, but I don't have time is what people say all the time. And I know that's one of your yeah buts. You actually say, yeah, but I don't have time. But Ben, you know all this stuff. How do you go and work through, yeah, but I don't have time though?
So my favorite acronym for system is save yourself time, energy, and money. So one of the ways that I work with my own struggle with time and my own yeah, but with time is to always look at things through the lens of a system. And that's so critical when it comes to culture, because a lot of times culture gets put into this skills. Oh, that's the emotional stuff. Oh, that's the relational stuff, and I say, no. That is the objective, most metallic stuff that you have. So instead of complaining about it, why not look at it objectively like you do any other operational stuff, right? And the upfront time, yes, is going to be where you're going to need to sacrifice, right? You're going to have to make room for the time it will take to build the system. Once you build the system, now it saves you time because it's an objective process that you can replicate throughout the entire organization and continue to scale it, right? And so you're looking at, we built system that demand more time, energy, and money up front. But once they're built, they save us time, energy, and money, across the timeline of.
But share a story when you didn't have time because you thought you didn't have time to pursue something, but you actually you just didn't allocate your time great to be able to do that. You have any stories like that?
Yeah, one happened last night. And I promise you, I'm a vulnerable guy, so I have no problems talking about this stuff. I married an incredible woman. I outpunted my coverage, pun intended. And, she was an academic All-American, captain of the women's golf team at the University of Minnesota, did some pro golf. She is a type A, just operational woman, right? Her dad's an engineer, her brother's an engineer. Like, that's just the way that it is. And she married a creative. She married a total creative visionary who doesn't manage his time, just goes, right? So here's case in point, like this, and this is something that has been a continuing area of conflict in our marriage. You know, I work really hard when I work, and when I have breaks, I don't. And so, like, my days, wearing multiple entrepreneurial hats and executive hats, like, I might have days where I have from 7 a.m. until 1 p.m., I am back to back and I'm getting after it. But then from 1 p.m. to 3 p.m., I've got a window. That's not my wife. My wife is always, when the next thing is completed, the question is, okay, what else can I do to improve my family's life and improve, right? And I love it. It because it challenges me. But like it happened the other day, like, you know, it's 3 o'clock in the afternoon. I finished a full day of meetings. I had one, a little bit later. So I went downstairs. So she comes downstairs and walks past me on the couch, and I'm kind of getting the side eye from her, and I'm going, I know what's going on there. So she's continuing to work.
This is interesting because you're more like my bride, right? So she's an introvert and she's creative. And I am more like your wife, where I'm like, oh, there's a minute of time. You've got to be able to do something. Why not do this other thing while I'm waiting for this thing to cook? Or when I'm doing, like, I'm like, because why would you not get more done?
It's been a really good learning process for both my wife and I to embrace the superpowers that come out of our the way in which we work, but then also recognize the kryptonite that exists within the way that we work. And so I'm just one of those guys where I can get a lot done. I can get a lot done I just move and I go and I accomplish. And that's very athletic of me, right? It just is. Like that's the athlete life. Is you go in, you go 150 miles an hour,
Right.
and then you get done and you go and you rest. I have to learn from her of how I can make some strategic choices to, and then she needs to learn from me on the importance of rest and, knowing how to prioritize. And this was what your chapter was about. You get 1440 minutes.
Yeah,
right?
exactly. And
Yeah.
what you do and you use it. The other yeah, but you mentioned was, yeah, but I don't know what to do next. Now, I mean, you got 20 things going on. What do you mean? What does that mean? I don't know what to do next.
I think for me, I've been on a learning curve over the last decade, surrounding myself with, elite business, PhD, chief people officers in Fortune 100 companies. And so for me, I don't know what to do next. I think would be a reflection of, and you talk about this too, like I describe it as wisdom is found at the intersection of knowledge and experience. Talked a lot about this in the too, feeling that way can be a result of not having the knowledge, needed to apply. And, I had a Bachelor of Liberal Arts degree. And so for me, a lot of the answer is found in just needing to understand business strategy, right? So that I can grow into the kind of leader that can understand what the next strategy should be. And you talk about this in the book too. Like that's why mentorship is so important, right? So and I know that because that's what sports provides. I knew that one of the ways to answer that or to help me in that area was to surround myself with mentor and to learn and then replicate.
You see, here's the thing, Ben, is that if you understand people, like I only have a bachelor's degree in marketing, and I've literally coached leaders at Fortune 100 companies, right? And I'm like, why are they asking me a question when they have all these resources and all these people and all these? Because it's about perspective and it's about being an outsider of their organization. It's about caring about them in a way that they're, wow, I don't know you, but I got to know you quickly and I trust you. See, Ben, that's what compensates for all these people with the education that are here. If they're not trustworthy, having the PhD isn't going to make you more trustworthy. You might be more knowledgeable. Right. So I think it's building on, it's like your integrity and the ability for you to listen to people and be able to do this in a way where you interact with somebody where they're like, it's not about knowledge, it's about knowing people first. So right. It's interesting. And that's what I talk about. It's like, you do surround yourself with mentors and you can find the knowledge and you can interact with other people. And actually the next thing, if you don't make a plan, there will be no next thing, but you got to at least know to take a next step and fail forward or at least adjust accordingly. So
yeah, that's good.
So what helps you break through uncertainty though? So tell me about like the self-talk that sometimes comes in people's heads versus like the mindset of, hey, I know I need help and here's how I'm going to get it. And for other people who aren't so vulnerable like you are, think about some of the stories about people you had to work with that, needed help.
I mean, again, it's kind of like train the trainer, right? It's the discipleship model where, you have to take what, you have to take what has been an improvement process or a development process for yourself and then be able to apply it to others. In sports, that was something that, was always a part of our culture was the veteran players, were going to take what they learned and they were going to give them to the younger players because it's ultimately what helped build the strongest team. Intentionality is a big word that we need to prioritize better. And so all of you listening, when it comes to your yeah buts, it really comes down to the intentional choice you're going to make in order to apply new practices designed to take the uncertainty out of those yeah buts and create certainty and clarity, right? So be intentional about that. Don't overthink it. Don't overthink it. A lot of times people just they take, topics like this and they just go, oh my gosh, how am I ever gonna, I mean, there's so much that I no, remember, culture is not a boulder game. Culture is a pebble game. Culture is about taking little pebbles and continuously throwing them into the pond and ripple effect after ripple effect after ripple effect, right? So when you think about having to, prioritize your time better, it doesn't mean all of a sudden go from waking up at 7 a.m. to 4 a.m. and having to, no, just, it means 7 a.m. to 6:30. And what can you start out doing with that extra half an hour? And as that becomes comfortable and as you see the value in that, maybe it's 6:30 turns to 6. And then you can you know what I'm saying? Like,
Incrementalize. Yeah, just take it over time and then be able to do it at a pace that's sustainable. See, what I always tell people is like, even if you're working out, whatever you're going to do, make it realistic and sustainable. Why set such a huge goal that you're going to swallow in one large gulp? Do it where at least you have a fallback that you can at least try to move toward that. Because not everybody's built like an athlete that it's do or die. Some people just need to start, just be able to start, and thinking about it is a start. And then acting on it is the next part of the start. So surrounding yourself with other people that actually have similar beliefs or are actually working on things together, trying to overcome their own yeah buts. This is all part of the progress. And then listening to a podcast where it's somebody you trust and they're not just blowing smoke, but you're like, maybe I should try this. Maybe this will work.
yeah, exactly. Yep.
Reading our books, both of our books probably would help a few people, I'm thinking. What do you think?
Well, I will tell you that, the story arch of the book was given to me by one of my mentors, who's seven times author, 3-time CPO, Fortune 100 CPO. And he said, like, the most powerful story arch is one that follows inspire, teach, coach, and inspire. So every chapter in this book, I did not want this to be a self-help book for life and business. I wanted it to be a practical and tactical tool that could be used to improve. And so it's every chapter is going to have inspiration, which is what story is. Going to have powerful stories that come out of football, life, business. But then it's also going to teach, it's going to coach, and it's going to provide objective application. Simple that you can apply in order to develop winning championship culture, right? So, and my dad wrote the afterword, which is super, like, I turned into like a bawling little boy when I got the afterword because I write a very, powerful first chapter and about a story with my dad and I at the Super Bowl. And then the afterword is the same story through his eyes. So it's really cool.
Seriously, this is one of my favorite podcasts. Ben, you've been a fantastic guest, and I truly mean that. Your authenticity, your willingness to share things that other people would think are even off limits. And it's about you and how you really live. I hope people listen to this and literally see themselves in it, but also see how being vulnerable and being real is really the only way to get ahead.
Yeah.
So thank you so much for being part of this.
Thanks, Mark. Thanks for having me.
Thank you for listening to the Yeah But podcast. If today's episode provided valuable perspective on how to overcome the excuses that can hold you back, let us know in the comments. Remember, it's not about the yeah buts. It's about finding ways to live, learn, and lead better every day. If you enjoyed this episode, be sure to subscribe, leave a review, and share it with someone who could use a little kick to get past their yeah buts. And don't forget to follow us on Spotify or Apple Podcasts. And for even more tips, connect with me at markawolfe.com/podcast or on LinkedIn. Until next time, keep challenging those excuses and keep moving forward.